Hey, soccer fans. This is Nick Pateras for the Sons of a Pitch, an American soccer podcast. We thank you for joining us again this week as we talk all things MLS and American soccer. As always, I am joined here by my good friend and fellow host, Mike Guglielmi. Mike, how you feeling tonight, man? How's the weekend?
Hey, feeling good, man. A little tired after the live last night. An early start today, but had a good weekend. Can't complain.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Want to thank everyone who joined our conversation. For everyone who joined us on the live last night, thank you for keeping Mike company a little bit. I know it can get a little lonely over there, Mike, with all your kids and all your pets and all your farm animals and your wife. But it's nice that you get to take some time and talk soccer with the fans. So, fans, we do it once a week.
I got to correct this really quick. I got to correct this. You got to put the wife first, at least in front of the farm animals. Just got to save myself there.
Nothing but love for Allison. Hopefully she's watching. We'll get a comment shortly, I'm sure. But listeners and viewers, we try to do this, once a week, pick a game out and go watch it. So Mike did the LA Galaxy in their game.
LA Galaxy in Seattle. Yep, LA Galaxy in Seattle last night. And we got Amador Rojas is on looking for his weekly shout-out. Amador, here is your shout-out. How you doing, Amador? Thanks for jumping on with us. And, our live next week will be on Saturday night. Unfortunately, my graphic won't send, but we're going to do the Inter Miami against New York City game next Saturday night at 7 Central Time. Going to be lots of fun in that one. So make sure you come and join us for that as well.
And we want to thank everyone who has joined us and followed us on our social media pages, especially everyone on Twitter, More Than a Game, Katie Sylvester Hetty, Detective MLS, Hector Trujillo, Trey Horsfall, Forge FC, polls. Like, there's a whole Twitter page dedicated to Canadian Premier League polls and questions. Like, wonderful. Great. CPL getting some love. Thank you to Not Your Soccer expert, Garrett Craig, Andrew Atkins, the Crew Review podcast. They've got a lot to review after this last week's game. From the Stands podcast, Ryan Donahue, David McDonald, In the Name of Football podcast, the Ground Share podcast, and Steve W. Thank you to all of our newest Twitter followers. And for those of you who haven't liked us or followed us on Twitter, find us at SOP Soccer. You can also find us on Facebook at Sons of a Pitch Soccer. Just like German Mejia, Ulysses Serralta, Alex Serona, Stu Asher, GX Sanakis, Sam Leodakis, and many, many others who have found us on Facebook. And thanks to everyone who's jumped on YouTube, leaving comments, subscribing. Mike, you got something to say about our YouTube subscribers, don't you?
Yeah, so we got a few more subscribers last night from our live stream reaction. And speaking of YouTube subscribers, one of our subscribers here, Amador Rojas, shout out to my sister, Ashley, please. Ashley, here's your shout out. Thanks for watching with Amador there. And make sure you subscribe as well, Ashley, and get involved into our 1,000 YouTube subscriber challenge. I think we picked up like 6 or 7 last night. And that's going to get into the 1,000 YouTube subscriber challenge to pick up a $250 Visa gift card when we reach 1,000 YouTube subscribers. So get in on that. I am just dying to give away some money here and start making some money once we hit that 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So that thanks for jumping on with that. We had a few other good ones. Tina something or other. I can't forget the name. Galaxy Crazy. Those guys jumped on and subscribed last night. A couple other ones. And it was fun. We actually, when we were talking last night, I forgot to mention this during the live stream reaction, but this Tina something or other, I forget what the last part is, Suniga or something like that. They're like, oh, what's your prediction of the game? And this is like 5 minutes into the game, 0-0. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going 3-1 Sounders. And son of a bitch, it was 3-1 Sounders. And that was I finally got a score right. So that was kind of fun.
Hey, all right.
And I think we got a subscriber for life because she's like, oh my God, you got the score right, or he. I don't know if it's a he or a she, but they're like, you got the score right. Way to go. So yeah, got it.
Awesome. Things are getting better. So, by the way, good segue. Be on the lookout for Mike's picks and predictions videos and lives that he does as well. Are you doing it tonight after this show, Mike?
Not tonight. Got to get some rest. Was up too late last night with that live stream reaction. I'll probably do it tomorrow afternoon at some point once I clock off work.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Those West Coast games, that'll get to you here in the Chicago area for sure.
They will.
All the more reason we want to hear from all the fans from LA, San Jose, Portland, Seattle. Let us know what's going on with your teams because we don't always get a chance to stay up too late and watch those games. But speaking of the games, Mike, we had the mega week of soccer games, 5, 10, 15, 25 MLS games in the last week. You ready to dive in and kind of break down just what's going on in the league? You ready for this? Get the energy up?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Lots of games to talk about.
All right, so let me start here with the first 5 games on the schedule, and we're going to run straight through the schedule. So don't say we're biased. Don't say we love the East or Western Conference. We just roll through the MLS schedule, everybody. First game up, New England defeats Montreal 3-1. Atlanta somehow finds a way to win a game, defeats Dallas 1-0. TFC, Mike, your boys from the north, defeat NYCFC 1-0. I know you got some takes on that one. Yep. Chicago finds their offense again, rolls the Dynamo of Houston 4-0, and Cincinnati draws Philadelphia 0-0. I think this is a point streak for Cincinnati here. Maybe they're onto something.
Maybe.
So, Mike, what out of that slate of games, what stands out to you? What do you think some of these wins and losses mean for how these teams are going to look for the rest of the season?
What stands out to me is Montreal can't seem to keep 10 men or 11 men on the field. They seem to only be playing with 10 men, and they only seem to be losing. So that sticks out to me as well. Atlanta getting a victory over FC Dallas, a decent Dallas side. So that is surprising when they then all of a sudden they can't score, they can't play against half these teams, and then they show up and beat a Dallas team. Chicago blowing out Houston. What? Houston, who was blowing out like Minnesota and, all these teams, and now all of a sudden they get blown out by the Chicago Fire, one of the worst teams in the league. When we were talking here last Monday night, they were at the bottom of the league, right, and now they're not anymore after a few straight wins. Also, I want to touch on that New York City Toronto FC game. I talked with Daniel Young last night, a good NYCFC fan, and he was very upset about that game, and he has all the reason to be upset about that game. New York City completely dominated TFC for 85 minutes and should have won that game. Alex Bono stood on his head in goal for TFC, and TFC did not look good at all. They were missing a couple pieces, but they didn't look good. They shouldn't have won that game. And then all of a sudden, magic. Substitute comes in for Heber, who seemed to tear his ACL or something, and substitute comes into the game and gets called for a handball at the outside of the box. Was not a handball. I mean, the guy jumped up to block the ball. His arm was in on his body, hits his shoulder, bicep area. Hand is not in an unnatural position. It's at the top of the box. A garbage call. The ref was horrible in that game, and Pozuelo steps up, buries the penalty, and TFC gets the 3 points. Now, look, I'll take the 3 points as a TFC fan, but they weren't deserved. And we've seen it happen before. Look at the best thing I can bring up is look at Toronto last year in the playoffs when they went to Atlanta and got run out of the building in Atlanta and still won to make MLS Cup final. Shouldn't have won that game. It should have been Atlanta. And then the next week, karma came back and kicked them right in the ass when they dominated the Sounders for 65 minutes, where the Sounders barely even touched the ball in the first 65 minutes. And then they lost MLS Cup final 3-1 to Seattle. So New York City feels hard done by, and they were hard done by. But two of the top teams in the East, that was clear that, New York City is definitely back. They're not the trash team that started out the season, and TFC is right there with them as well. So those are my thoughts on those games. What are your thoughts on those first 5 games there, Nick?
Well, yeah, Mike, just to confirm what you said, Heber for NYCFC tore his ACL, so he will miss the rest of the season, and who knows how much longer rehabbing an ACL. Typically, those will take 9 to 12 months before they're cleared for regular game action again. you've got some of those freak athletes who can do it in 7 months or so. And then you've got those guys who need to take more time and come back around the 15 to 18 month mark. But that's typically what I've seen both from athletes and in my own personal situation when I tore my ACL playing a rec league game in law school. But yeah, it was great to see how well New York City played and that they were in that game till about the end, despite a bear going down and despite not having Maxi Morales around again with a torn ACL. Man, what are they doing up there in New York?
Right.
I don't know. Could be just, the fact that those injuries are freak injuries, or maybe that's just a culmination of, micro injuries that no one is ever aware of until the full tear occurs. So it was nice to see that with New York City. Chicago is the game that stood out to me, and I was really surprised, not so much that Chicago won, but that they won 4-0. Like that's an incredible victory over a Houston Dynamo team who had been putting up goals, who had been beating teams like Kansas City, top team in the Western Conference. Like it was a shocking kind of Jekyll and Hyde game from the Dynamo. Maybe that's not too unexpected looking at it's Todd Ramos's first season as their head coach, that they've had some pieces that they've moved around with Albert Elise being transferred to Boa Vista over in Portugal. Maybe it's not too surprising, but it was to me, especially since they've been in such good form. The flip side to it, from Chicago's perspective, they finally finished their chances. That has been the storyline for Chicago all of this season and most of last season as well. They have great opportunities. They have excellent talent, but they just don't finish. They don't get those 3 or 4 goals, and usually they're losing games 2-1, 3-2, something like that. They just can't get their offense rolling. Well, in that Houston game, they did everything right. They looked like the playoff team that we thought they would be at the beginning of the season. Excellent work from everyone on the Fire staff and players. That fourth goal, kind of a crazy penalty situation. Again, another handball type of call. And then, of course, Houston's keeper jumps off the line to make the save against CJ Sapong, who was given the penalty or allowed to take the penalty. No antics like the prior week where they were fighting over who takes it and then Madron misses. But the other kind of weird rule, too, that I wasn't aware of, and this is something for our listeners as well, if a goalie steps off the line prior to the penalty kick being taken, as you know, they have to keep at least 1 foot on the line, it's an automatic yellow card. I guess it's declared such an unfair advantage that if you leave the line before the ball is struck, not only does the shooter get to retake it if it's a miss or a save, it's an automatic yellow for the keeper. I find that to be a little harsh. I guess I understand the reasoning by it. You don't want to give keepers like the advantage that way, where they're not penalized for taking such a great risk. But I feel like most goalkeepers who I've seen come off the line early aren't doing that to try and do any sort of gamesmanship. They're just trying to get a jump on the ball. They're trying to actually make a soccer play. So I think that's a little harsh. I think that rule has to be looked at a little bit more, especially if you start to see goalies get yellow card accumulation, or all you need is a keeper who's wasting time to come off a line on a penalty, and then boom, keeper gets red for a couple soft yellow cards like that. So that's really what stood out to me for week 1, Mike. The great play from the Chicago Fire, the Jekyll and Hyde from the Houston Dynamo. I will note CJ Sapong did get to take that 4th goal for Chicago. That penalty gets him on the score sheet. Hopefully that builds his confidence a little bit, at least for the sake of the Chicago Fire. And we get to see them keep rolling, Mike. I didn't do an official hot minute on the Chicago Fire this week in the show notes, but I think that was it, right? Like, they came out, they scored 4 goals, they looked phenomenal, and that's exactly what you want out of the Chicago Fire. The other Eastern Conference matchup there, Cincy, Philadelphia. I didn't get a chance to watch the game. I think a lot of what Philly's struggling is they're kind of regressing to the mean. They started out so hot. They've been playing so well. They had a great MLS's back tournament. And now they're getting back to kind of where we expected them to be. They've lost, they've dropped points in a couple games, and they're starting to fall a little bit back towards the rest of the pack. In the Eastern Conference, that's only 2-3 points separate the top 4 teams, and then you've got the next tier of playoff teams from 21 to kind of 15, 16 points. Philly's sitting at 28, but they could be easily overtaken by TFC and Orlando City over the next couple of weeks. Also, you've got all the talk about Aronson being transferred and the interest in him. Maybe that's kind of affecting them from a mental standpoint, but I think Jim Curtin has his team better prepared than that. So that's everything that I saw from the first group of 5 games, Mike. So feel free, jump in, add what you like. Otherwise, we can move right along.
Yeah, as far as Cincy and Philly, I think that was just kind of a midweek game that just really played like a midweek game. That's my take on that one. Going right down the list, we got Columbus taking on Minnesota, 2 of the better teams in the league. Columbus, best team in the East, Supporters Shield leaders against Minnesota. Which Minnesota team's going to show up in the Western Conference, but sometimes they're hot, they're on fire, the best team in the West. Other times, not so much, but it's still a good team nonetheless. Columbus gets it done at home at Mob-Free Stadium, 2-1, gets the victory over the Western Conference, one of the leaders in the Western Conference in Minnesota. Also, Sporting Kansas City hosting Orlando. Orlando City goes into KC and gets a 2-1 victory. Did not see that one coming. Miami and the Red Bulls, 4-1 victory for the Red Bulls. Very nice victory there for the Red Bulls. We got Nashville and DC United. Nashville wins 1-0 at home. Colorado and San Jose. Colorado 5-0 over San Jose as their struggles continue. What stood out to you in those games?
Well, Mike, the first thing, kind of a bit of trivia and maybe a little bit of history here, something to point out in Nashville versus DC. The head official for that game, Tori Penso, the first woman MLS head referee in a game since 2000. That was in that DC versus Nashville game. I read the story. I read her post-game quotes about kind of the moment of it, and she even said, she's like, leading up to it, it's all business. After the game, she kind of had time to reflect on what it meant to be the first head women's official in 20 years there. So I think that's kind of a cool thing to note. She's hopeful to get more games, but as she said, she's realistic about it. Pro's going to score her as they score any other referee, and if she gets high marks, she'll be given more responsibilities. Otherwise, right, she might get sent to sideline duty, VAR duty, whatever the case may be. So great to see that. Also, I watched a few USL games this week too. I'm seeing a lot more women referees on the sidelines and even in charge of some of the games as well. So from that kind of league perspective, great to see. Other thing I kind of took out of her interview as far as being the head official, she said like it just shows how difficult it is to become a referee at the pro level. And by pro, I mean the Professional Referees Organization, because I think that's what the acronym stands for, not just professionals in general. PRO, the organization that supplies the referees for MLS. How hard it is to get the accreditation to get there, to work your way up. I mean, it's not like you can just walk in and be an MLS referee, accreditation or otherwise, accredited or otherwise. You usually have to do some NCAA games, usually some USL games, and build up a resume just like any other profession, and then have high enough marks and referrals to get, an MLS game. And then you start as a fourth official or as a sideline official, and then you work your way into that head officiating game. Because remember, Mike, if they're playing 25 games a week, it's only 25 openings on a week-to-week basis, and sometimes there's just not kind of an opening there for referees. Plus, she talked about her preparation. She actually studied the last several games that each of those teams had played to kind of get ready for the game, what she would expect them to play, how physical they would be, things to look out for as well. Now, that stood out to me is interesting, and I want to get your take on this too, Mike. Do you think she's predisposing herself, or referees who prepare in such a way, are they predisposing themselves to the game or to a team or to a player who maybe picked up a yellow card the week before? Or do you think that's just good prep work and we can trust these officials to be completely neutral and unbiased?
Well, I think it's good prep work. I feel like it's a newbie type prep work. I think that once you've done this 40, 50, 60 times, you start hitting the routines. You learn these teams just from, going through it with them so many times. I think that's something that the newer referees that haven't done a lot of games, that definitely helps with their refereeing. Do I think, is she going to sit there and say, oh, well, Zimmerman picked up a yellow card last game, so in the 35th minute when he has a slide tackle, you're going to be like, oh, he's on yellow card accumulation, I'm going to give him a yellow card. You're not thinking about that. I doubt it. I mean, unless, they're putting money on the games, which, oh, wait, that only happens in Italy. Or at least it's only been
wrong sport. It's not the NBA.
But, right. So, I doubt that, there's any fishy business going on there. I think it's good prep work. It seems like it's anybody gets that shot, right? You want to make the best of it. And it sounds like she's doing that. It's not like she's just taking it for granted and going. She's really putting in the work to get there and stay there. So well done for her. And I'm assuming with the last name Penso, maybe we'll see a husband-wife team coming up here soon with Chris Penso being a referee or a VAR or something. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, it would be really neat. I wonder if the league would not do it just for that aspect.
Right.
The other thing that stood out to me, obviously, Colorado smoking the Earthquakes 5-0. I didn't think Colorado had this kind of goal output in them. And for a couple weeks in a row now, they have proven me wrong. Looking at fbref.com, their expected goals is 20.6, but they've actually scored 25. So they are outperforming their expected goals. They're essentially making the most of their chances. So that is something that I didn't expect from a Colorado team who obviously was going to take a step forward this year. They have Rookie of the Year last year, Shinyashiki. You've got Jonathan Lewis, who's getting better and better. You've got guys improving. They kind of put together a defense just to have a defense. But you know what? Between that and the coaching that they're getting, they're outperforming, I think, all expectations this year. And as it stands right now in the standings, let me see where we're at here. Colorado, click on over to the Western Conference. Colorado's sitting in the 5 spot right now, Mike. 5th out of 12 teams in the West, looking like a decent chance to make the playoffs this season, which would be huge for them. Then on the flip side, San Jose, man, this is rock bottom if you're the Earthquakes. Almeida's tactics are failing in every sense of the word, offensively, defensively. Like, at least he hasn't lost the locker room yet, as far as we can tell. And I'm sure he's leaning heavily on veteran leadership like Chris Wondolowski, who can look in the locker room and say, I've been here before, guys. We just got to play through it. We'll see how long he can keep that up. I don't know how much longer the organization is going to give him. It would be really easy for San Jose's front office to say, we gave it a shot. It didn't work. We knew, this was kind of a transition year for us. Back to the drawing board. So that stood out to me. Obviously, Kansas City not generating more than one goal is very surprising. But that was kind of the big impact that I saw this last week, Mike. What do you think? What are your takeaways?
My takeaway is Orlando going into Kansas City and getting the victory. This Orlando team continues to grind out results and continues to put points on the board. So maybe the messed up season has really helped them, because for so many years, Orlando's done extremely well through like the end of May, beginning of June, and then it all falls downhill from there. Well, maybe this time there was no May or June because of the pandemic, and they just forgot, and they're just rolling through. I don't know. Maybe it's Oscar Pareja, maybe it's Nani, the second year of Nani. I don't know, but either way, they're doing well. And to go into Kansas City and get a victory like that, that's impressive. And they just keep staying up there with the top teams in the Eastern Conference, which is surprising to me as well, the way those standings break down. There is a bigger gap in the East than there is the West. Sporting Kansas City, 20 points, 4 points back of Seattle and Portland, still right there with a game in hand. So, that's not a lot out of those games that really stood out to me, but Sporting Kansas City for one.
Absolutely. So moving on to the next group of games, RSL Real Salt Lake defeats the Galaxy 2-0. RSL just loves playing against teams from LA, I guess.
Right.
Portland, kind of a surprising victory, 1-0 over Seattle Sounders. Now, it was in Portland was the home team, but just with Blanco being out, with Seattle kind of on a tear, I was surprised to see Portland walk away with a victory on that one. LAFC, just with an explosion of offense, 6-0 over the Vancouver Whitecaps. Vancouver doing some soul searching after that game. Nashville and Houston played to a 1-1 draw. And NYCFC, like you said, Mike, they look like they're back, 4-0 over FC Cincinnati. Again, I kind of wanted to touch on that Timbers-Sounders game. The Timbers still got it. You were worried about what would happen when Blanco comes down, but there's still enough talent and depth on that roster where they can generate some offense, where they can play solid defense. Savarese is a savvy coach, if you pardon the pun there. Savvy, right? He knows how to get the best out of his players and put them in the positions to get the best out of them. So maybe I thought the drop-off would be a little sharper than what it has been, but good on Portland. I'm shocked Seattle couldn't find a goal given how well they've been playing lately. A couple of headlines, though, out of Seattle. They re-signed Brad Smith, one of their former defenders and part of their 2019 MLS Cup championship team, after his contract with Bournemouth expired. And they also traded, just the news broke earlier today, they traded back for Roman Torres, the Panamanian international who was hanging out in Colorado for a bit. They get him back for a protected 2021 draft pick. So what that means is if they end up getting a pick in the top 19 positions in the draft, that's considered protected. Seattle will retain their pick next season, and then Colorado will get a 2022 first-round pick from Seattle. If they fall out of the top 19, Colorado gets their 2021 draft pick. So that is one thing that really stood out to me. It looks like Seattle is building some depth along the back line, and Mike, it looks like they're going for it. It looks like when you're bringing back some of these veteran pieces, some depth pieces, building up a defense, as they say, defense wins championships. Watch out, League Seattle is making moves to win another MLS Cup. Wouldn't surprise me if they go back-to-back.
Now, are they peaking too soon? That is the only question I have for Seattle. This is a team who consistently starts to peak at the end of the season and goes on a tear then. Well, they're going on their tear now, and we still have another, 9 or 10 games left in the regular season. So, maybe a little bit too soon for that. But, yeah, they're bringing in that veteran leadership with Torres. That's their one weak spot is Arriaga. I think that he's kind of a, forget which pun I'm looking for, but he's a ticking time bomb basically. He all of a sudden he gets beat bad and there's a red card and a penalty, and so I think they're just kind of shoring up that position there. But yeah, Seattle is for real for sure, which is surprising with Portland getting that victory without Blanco. But Portland's a damn good team too. They're right there at the top of the Eastern or Western Conference with Seattle. Yep. So that maybe a preview of the Western Conference Finals there. RSL beating the Galaxy. Dude, the Galaxy are trash. I mean, dear God, how bad is that team? I mean, when you look at that back line of Steres, Felcher, Dupuis, these guys are garbage. Why they shouldn't be in the league? They're just that back line, and then Bingham in net, which Bingham's been around for a long time, but he's just not that good of a goalie. Yeah. And these guys, I mean, they're stars. I don't know what it is about their stars. They just can't seem to get together. Like you see these teams that do well, like your Seattles, like your Torontos, their 3 DPs really complement each other well, and they play well together. LA Galaxy's DPs do not do that. Chicharito looks like a fish out of water out there in the front. Jonathan DeSantos, he's just too far back to really do any connection to Pavone, who's out on the wing, who can't seem to get into Chicharito. And you can't really tell if it's Pavone's trying to get the shots and the credit, and he's not really looking to feed Chicharito. It's just a mess. It's absolute trash from the LA Galaxy. And I have not watched a full Galaxy game until last night. and that really sold it for me on how bad that team is. LAFC in Vancouver, LAFC, dude, which LAFC team is going to show up? That's another thing. The consistency this season with these clubs has just been nuts. I mean, you have teams that have been going on runs, like Columbus is one team. Toronto is another. You also have like Portland and Seattle. Those 4 teams really have been the only consistent teams in MLS. The rest of them, they win a big game, they lose a big game. They win a big game, they lose a game they're not supposed to. Yep. So that's kind of interesting as well. But NYCFC, I think they're fine. I think they're back, and they're creeping their way up the table there in the Eastern Conference.
Great. There's one other player that I kind of want to profile out of this batch of games here, and that is Houston Dynamo striker Ariel Lassiter. And for our viewers and listeners, the name might sound familiar, and that's because he's the son of USMNT veteran Roy Lassiter, who played for the 99 DC United club, who won the double, as well as a number of other seasons for DC United and several other MLS clubs. So when I was watching him play in these couple of games, he really stood out to me. He was quick. He both on the ball and off the ball. He's got speed and vision. He always makes himself available for a play, to receive a pass, to pull a defender. Like, he's always doing something. And that kind of natural ability can't be overstated. So I wanted to take a moment and profile him a little bit here. His pro career started in 2014 when he was playing in the Swedish top flight. And then in 2015, joined the LA Galaxy organization and kind of went up and down between the LA Galaxy and Galaxy 2. Was definitely a depth piece for the senior team and logging minutes and developing in the USL. After 2018, though, he goes back to Costa Rica to play for Alajuelense. I think I got that right. A club which his father also played at during his career. And during that 2019 season in Costa Rican top flight, in 64 games, he ended up with 24 goals. So he's scoring almost every third game there, if at least every third game. Like, that is an incredible clip for such a young player. So then the Dynamo are like, hey, we got to get this guy. Because, we don't have enough forwards, right, on the Houston team. You bring in Lassiter to complement Mauro Manotas, Peña, Quintero, Ramirez, and Salazar. Now, you don't have enough strikers there. Okay, so Houston now has a glut of strikers. They can make some moves, maybe get some draft capital, maybe get some GAM, TAM, or other monies that are out there. And you know what? They got a good deal on Ariel Lassiter. Transfer Market, the website, has him listed at about $330,000. Plus, he's a U.S. citizen, takes up a domestic roster spot. Like, this is a great signing from a talent standpoint, from an accounting standpoint, from an organizational standpoint. They got his rights from the Galaxy for $50,000 in TAM plus performance bonuses. So you want to take the skeptics perspective. They'll play him in just enough games where he won't hit those bonuses, especially having all those other strikers. He's a budding talent. He's got 6 call-ups to the Costa Rican national team. I haven't looked into his background to see if he was considered for the U.S. at all, being a dual citizen with his father.
He was. I will touch on that in a minute.
Oh, excellent.
So, I'll jump in now because this is one that got away. So he did represent the United States at the U23 level in 2015 at the Toulon tournament in France. So this is a guy who was in the system, man, because of his dad being born in the United States. And his birthplace is or his hometown was Temecula, California. His birthplace was Costa Rica, so that's why he went over. But there you go. Again, 6 caps from the Costa Rican national team. Why? Why did he get 6 caps for the Costa Rican national team when he's playing against teams like Guatemala in a friendly? This is the leadership at the U.S. level that is just painting USMNT fans. You have a guy in your U23 system, and you do not play him. You let him go to Costa Rica and get his caps there. So, But anyways, I will digress from that. But yes, he was one that got away from the U.S. national team.
That's pretty funny, Mike. Okay, well there we go. The one other thing that stood out to me, again, we could talk about Ariel Lassiter and his talent and what he's going to be for Houston for a long time. I don't know though about the Lassiter family name. It doesn't sound Latin or Latino or Hispanic at all. Maybe it is more Central American. But what's funny is watching the game on Twitter and Univision. I think it's Nico Cantor is their broadcaster, and like, even if the name is like Northern European, like he will put the most Hispanic influence on it. So he's talking about how Ariel Lassiter. I'm like, I don't know, is Lassiter even a Spanish or ethnic sounding name to that degree? I don't know, but I love Nico Cantor's energy and just his enthusiasm he brings to every game. It's great. But yeah, so that's kind of the profile on Lassiter. Keep an eye on him. He's going to do good things. He could be, in a couple years, if he starts scoring 15 to 20 goals a season, if he's a regular MLS starter, he could end up making a big move overseas and netting the Dynamo some money, or he could help the Dynamo compete for a trophy if they, can kind of round out the rest of their roster. So that's what stood out to me in those games, Mike. Do you want to move on to the next 5, or do you want to take the sponsor break?
Yeah, so I'll touch on this first, and then we'll go to the sponsor break. But for Ariel Lassiter, he was born in Costa Rica.
His mom is Costa Rican.
Right, as his dad, Roy Lassiter, was born in Washington, D.C., grew up in North Carolina, was playing soccer, and ended up going to play for a team in Costa Rica, Alajuelense. And then that's where he was born. Hence why he's available for the Costa Rica national team. But with that, let's go to our halftime break, our sponsorship break, our hydration break, brought to you by Skira Icelandic Spring Water, 8.88 pH. Get it at your local 7-Eleven. Any 7-Eleven in the United States, you can pick up Skira Icelandic water. So thank you to Skira for holding our fort down for us and helping us out financially to allow us to bring you this wonderful product called Sons of a Pitch Soccer Podcast. Nick, take it away with our other 2 sponsors.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. We want to give our utmost thanks to Donovan Food Brokerage, a food service company located right here in the Chicagoland area, servicing the Midwest. They do K through 12, they do vending, they do storage, transport, anything as far as food storage and servicing. Reach out to Donovan Food Brokerage. They'll take care of you as well as they've taken care of us. John and his company have been supporters of this podcast since the beginning. We can't thank them enough for it. And, again, a local company supporting a local podcast. That's great. Also want to thank Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water. Again, one of the finest quality waters you can get, available at your local Walgreens. We are all about hydration here at the Sons of a Pitch, an American soccer podcast. So got to stay healthy, got to stay hydrated, and got to stay informed on all of your American soccer. So we got it all right here.
Absolutely. So the next game's up on the stretch here. We've got DC United hosting the New England Revolution. The Revs with a 2-0 victory. Red Bulls at home against Montreal in their second home. And this one was a 4-1 victory for the Red Bulls. Chicago Fire keep it rolling with a 2-0 victory over Atlanta. Philadelphia 3, Miami 0. Toronto FC 3, Columbus Crew 1. Lots of good games to talk about in this one, and about 10 minutes to get through the rest of our games. So I'll let you talk here for a few minutes on a couple things that stand out to you, and I'll touch on the TFC game.
Sure. So 2 things real quick. Red Bulls with back-to-back 4-1 victories. Good for them. Getting into a groove. Chicago keeping it rolling, moving up the standings. The one thing, Union just rock Miami 3-0, and really that all stemmed from Gonzalo Higuain in his Miami debut. Skies a penalty kick, as people were commenting on social media. That ball is going to land in Argentina, where he's from. Like, that's how terrible of a PK it was. And then some of the Union players mocked him for it and got into a huge shoving match, which I love it, man. I think it was hysterical. I don't know exactly what was said, but this giant signing comes over, misses a PK badly in his first game, and these Union players who probably nobody knows outside of Philadelphia are like, what are you doing here, bro? I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. But my question for you, Mike, we talking TFC in Columbus, this is probably, at least from a results standpoint, losing 3-1, one of the worst losses for Columbus this season, which is a good thing. Like, they're playing that well that their worst loss is 3-1 at Toronto. So,
Right.
Give us your thoughts on the game, but what did Toronto do particular that stymied the Crew, and can other teams replicate it?
Well, first off, did you watch that Gonzalo Higuain penalty kick?
Yeah, it went way over the bar, man.
Dude, that missed the bar by about a foot. It did not go way over the bar. It was close.
If you're putting it over by a foot, you might as well put it over by a mile, Mike.
Well,
terrible PK. Terrible.
You can go for the roof of the net on a PK, especially the first PK in Inter Miami history. But we'll move on to the Columbus game. No, and just to note, this was more of a neutral spot. This was not Toronto. This wasn't home. This was in Connecticut at UConn's football stadium.
Right.
So it's not, neither team is comfortable in those confines. Is there a blueprint for Columbus out of this game? No, not really. There was nothing that TFC really did that, might have broken down their system or anything like that. Really what it was Toronto FC just being the better team, and an unbelievable game by Richie Larea, the right back for TFC, who's really making a name for himself in this league after being a high draft pick to Orlando City, not getting any time in Orlando, and then being on the brink of never playing in MLS again, gets picked up on a cheap contract by Toronto, and now he's probably one of the best, if not the best, right back in all of MLS. So
we might have to look at that next week, like some of the top right backs. Because I wouldn't put Richie Larea there just, from pulling names from a hat, right?
Right. So Richie Larea will be our spotlight next week. Make a good slide on that one, Nick.
I'm going to type it up right now.
But no, overall, it was, it was a great performance by TFC. In the first half, Columbus did control the play, and it was an own goal that beat them. So, you say, losing 3-1. Yeah, well, they technically would have lost 3-0 if it wasn't for a boneheaded play by Westberg and Mavinga. Mavinga dove to clear out the ball. He missed it. It went off the top of his shin, and Westberg was out in no man's land, and it just went into the back of the net. So really nothing crazy. There was a couple decent chances by Zardes and Zelarayan from Columbus, but Toronto FC really played that game well, and had a great game by Pozuelo, who right now, if I had to put a favorite on the MLS race, it's him. He's doing everything. He's scoring, he's assisting, he's controlling the play, he's leading. He's got it all right now. There's nobody that's really standing out in this league that says that guy, is the MVP. So I think it's a close race. I would put him as a favorite now, unlike some of the picks that we had earlier. We'll talk about those in a few minutes. But no, good result by Toronto FC. It was a very important result from a Shield standpoint. You look at the standings, and TFC, if they lose that one to Columbus is over TFC by 8 points, and now it's only 2 because of that victory. So it should be fun to watch down the stretch with those teams fighting it out for first place, in probably for the Shield. But TFC just showed they're not going to roll over, and they played well. So Columbus is still a good team. I expect them to do well and continue to do well. But TFC is just a little bit better.
Excellent, Mike. Actually, there's nothing more I want to talk about that slate of games. Apologies to the Northeast there, DC, New England, Red Bulls. We're just kind of glossing over some of your games here. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more next week on it. So you want me to go ahead and give the overview of those last 5?
Yeah.
So we had Minnesota hosting RSL at a 0-0 draw. FC Dallas and Orlando also playing to a 0-0 draw. Dallas, where'd your offense go? Vancouver, not surprising, drops 1-0 to Portland. The Galaxy, also not surprising, falling 3-1 to Seattle. And then LAFC, this was the shocker of the week, Mike. LAFC,
Yes, it was.
after a 6-goal blitz of Vancouver, at home, loses to the worst team in MLS, San Jose, losing 2-1. I did not stay up late and watch that game because I didn't expect anything from it, and I need my beauty sleep. I mean, look at me here on the screen, right? The lighting, I need the beauty sleep. I really do need it. How does San Jose beat LAFC 2-1? I can only imagine that the players finally said, "We've had enough. We need to do something about this." Or LAFC went in very overconfident, and that's what happened. I'm shocked, Mike, that these last 5 games had as few goals as they had, and that LAFC result. What's your take?
Yeah, the LAFC result was crazy. I mean, I was doing the live for LA Galaxy in Seattle, and we had one of our subscribers, Marlon, was on last night, and it was funny because he was like, in that, he's like, Galaxy suck. And I'm like, oh, we have an LAFC fan on the broadcast. And I'm like, well, maybe he's a Seattle fan because, they're playing the Galaxy. But I'm like, nah, it's probably an LAFC fan. And then he comes back like 20 minutes later. He's like, yeah, I'm downloading ESPN Plus. I'm going to, watch the LAFC game, and I'm an LAFC fan. And then he jumps back on right at the end, and he's like, LAFC lost 2-1. I'm like, what? How the hell did that happen? So I didn't get a chance to watch it, but a team like that is just struggling. I mean, just really struggling. San Jose, their backs are up against the wall. They had to have a couple bounces go their way, and you got an overconfident LAFC team thinking, they got crushed by Seattle. Oh, they got crushed by they got Colorado last game. We're just going to walk all over them. We're LAFC. And in MLS, when you do that, you will get bit in the ass. It happens a lot. And that's exactly what happened in this one. And San Jose, it just pains me to see they have a hell of a coach. Mm-hmm. Matias Almeida, it's proven that he can coach well in MLS and his system will work. He just needs some players. That's it. I think they can fire him. We talk about it, all of his results and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, go ahead, fire him. It doesn't matter there's a lot of other MLS teams that would come swooping in right away to get him because it's just the amount of money that this club is putting in. Their DPs, who are their DPs? Vaco? Okay. I know nothing about the guy.
Jackson, you will. I don't know what kind of contract
he's just a regular, like a homegrown contract kind of thing. It's a real low. Their DPs are, Vaco, Christian Eriksen, who I think left, and then there was Danny Housens or something like that. Go spend some freaking money, man. Go get a couple decent players. I thought they were maybe starting to go that route when they brought in Alanis with that TAM loan move in the backfield. But then I'm like, good God, do something. But yeah, that's kind of San Jose there. I'm surprised with that result. Yeah. And Portland keeps rolling, wins at home, a home game for that. Wait, they were on the road in that game, even though technically they were at home.
Right. And, they stadium, but because Vancouver and travel and COVID and all that, it was an away game for the Timbers in Providence Park. Hey, real quick, San Jose has 2 designated players, so you're right. Go out and get some players. Their 2 DPs, Christian Espinoza and Vaco. From Georgia, the country of Georgia. So that's interesting to see a player from there making their way over to the MLS. And then just real quick, here's the crazy thing, Mike. Mark Anthony Kaye for LAFC gets the go-ahead goal in the 45th minute of that game. So they end the half going up 1-0. San Jose maintains possession, maintains composure, scores in the 80th and the 93rd. That's how they ended up coming back and winning. So that is what's most impressive to me about the San Jose thing. One other quick thing I kind of want to point out here as well. We had a cool little story from ESPN FC about FC Dallas's Tanner Tessman. Something I didn't know about until I was reading it this week. Tanner Tessman is a homegrown product for FC Dallas, but also apparently was an excellent field goal kicker and was even offered a spot on Clemson's football team. First of all, he does have a connection that Dabo Sweeney is his godfather, the coach of Clemson, is Tanner's godfather. So he had the option, okay, do I stick with FC Dallas or do I go kick for one of the best college teams in the country and probably, based on what the article was saying, probably get an NFL contract? Like, this guy, Tanner Tessman, by all accounts, has an NFL leg. But he ended up choosing to stick with FC Dallas. And he is now getting starts on their first team and part of that kind of academy youth movement that Dallas is bringing into their starting lineup. So I think that's a really cool thing. And I don't know, Mike, maybe I'm overreacting here. What do you think? Is this kind of a turning point for some of our athletes here in America where you've got the option of playing ACC football or playing for FC Dallas in the MLS? You know, I kind of thought like, okay, maybe we're starting to see guys like, you know, a guy from around the area, like we saw Justin Marja, who was a top tight end at Notre Dame, end up pitching in the MLB because he's like, I can make more money, I can have a longer career, things of that nature. Maybe I love baseball more. Maybe some of these athletes are starting to look at the MLS as a better professional athletic career. And it's the phrase that we've all been saying for decades now. Gosh, if only some of our best athletes played soccer instead of these other sports, could we develop the league better and have a better national team? Does any of that resonate with you, Mike, or do you got a different take on it?
I got a little bit of a different take on it. It's one guy. It's one in the right direction from a soccer perspective, but until there's more, you got to see a bit of a trend there. You see these guys going and playing, baseball instead of football a lot with the health and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully we'll see more down the road, but again, a kicker spot, right? I mean, dude, a kicker spot in the NFL, if you even get there, which chances are you're not gonna, but if you do, you miss 4 field goals in a row and you're out. Like, you know what I mean? Or you get a couple bad weeks in a row and they drop you like you're hot. I mean, there was a guy, I remember, I forget the name of the guy. He was a kicker for Florida State. And he was drafted by the Bucks in like the 2nd or 3rd round, the stupidest draft pick you could ever imagine. Roberto Aguayo. And this guy was literally the most accurate kicker in college football history. He missed like 1 field goal, and that was like 67 yards or something in his 4 years in college. Like, unbelievable record. The guy shows up, gets his first kick in a preseason game, gets blocked. Second kick, he misses. And like by week 3, he was gone.
Yeah. Spent 3 seasons in the NFL. And of course, he made a stop here in Chicago because,
right. Why not? Right. I mean, you were talking about what was a goalpost guy. What the hell was his name that always kept hitting the post?
Yeah. Right. I can't even,
right. But yeah, I mean, a kicker in the NFL, you might as well take a shot at MLS and, see what you can do. And then the world is open with that. There's not many kickers around the world to play football. Okay, there's no world leagues of football. There might be like NFL Europe or something if that's still kicking around or whatever the hell it is. But there's not a ton of spots. Well, if you're playing soccer, you've got a lot of spots. You can, if it doesn't work out in MLS, you can go to USL. If it doesn't work out in USL, you can go to the Costa Rican division. Like, there's all kinds of different professional spots where you can get paid. So it is what it is. Slow the roll. I know you're excited about it, but
Okay.
Let's see a few more.
Sounds good, Mike. Real quick, just wanted to touch on a couple other things before we wrap up as we're approaching the hour mark. Just got a text message in from the MLS. They did the Gold Cup draw tonight while broadcasting. Guess who got pulled into the same group? United States and Canada are in the same Gold Cup group kicking off in July. So that's going to be awesome to see. We'll have to go see who else is in the group because, if they both finish 1 or 2 and move on, what's the big deal? But, if there's like a Panama or Trinidad Tobago, a team could surprise perhaps, and cause some problems for one of those two powerhouses.
Yeah, so we got here, I'll break it down for you. You got USA, Canada, Martinique, and then the winner of the prelims 7. So the other groups, you've got Mexico, El Salvador, Curacao. Group C is Costa Rica, Jamaica, Suriname. Group D, Honduras, Panama, Grenada, and Qatar. Why the hell is Qatar in the Gold Cup?
They must have gotten the invite. It must be keeping a spot or two for the invitational.
Why the hell would you, if you're going to invite a team, why don't you invite a freaking good team?
Well, they're hosting.
But anyways, that's for another conversation. But no, that's definitely the toughest group in the Gold Cup there, just based on the fact that U.S. and Canada, those are two stronger teams. Honduras, Panama, Panama really isn't on the level of Honduras yet. Costa Rica and Jamaica, there's that gap break in that gap as well. Mexico and El Salvador. Mexico's got it easiest, man, with El Salvador and Curacao.
Those 3 games immediately. Yeah.
Easily. So yeah, it'll be exciting to watch USA Canada. Hopefully we'll get some good TV for these Gold Cup games. It won't be stuck on like Fox Soccer Plus. And hopefully by this time in July of 21.
Yep.
Please let there be some fans in the building. And this is going to be the perfect segue to the last thing we need to touch on here before this podcast is over as far as some COVID results. But good God, let the fans in the damn building, please. This is ridiculous. You have teams that have fans in the stands. That is a competitive advantage to these clubs who do not have fans in the stands. You go to Kansas City, Orlando. Obviously, they just played each other last week. But like what I'm saying is there's certain clubs that Montreal even who had some of the harshest COVID restrictions in all of MLS. They were like one of the last teams training. And they have fans in their stands in these games. And other squads do not. There is no reason why they cannot have 25 to 50% capacity in these buildings. You're killing your league. Let these teams make some money. You're not trying to save the world, okay? People can make their own decisions if they feel comfortable going to a game where they're able to social distance and wear a mask at all times. Because last time I checked, COVID was not very dangerous if you can keep your social distancing. And when you cannot keep 6 feet apart, then you have your mask to protect you and to protect others. So open the damn doors up. Let your clubs make some money. Let these fans go back in the stadium, man. Like, yeah, you're watching it on TV. That's great. But get these doors open. So by 2021 for this Gold Cup, we better have some fans in those buildings. And you know what? If the host cities aren't going to allow it, find a different host city.
Hey, it might be to the U.S.'s advantage if you're playing any Central or Central American teams, since usually those are away games for us, even if they are in one of the 50 states. So,
you do have a point, sir. You do have a point.
Could work out in our favor. We'll talk more about the Gold Cup draw. We'll talk more about the MLS's announcement where they're not releasing players for CONMEBOL international duty. We'll talk about all of that next week, as well as we're going to review some of our what look to be terrible preseason picks and predictions as we approach the halfway point of this MLS season. Here's a taste. We had as our league MVP preseason picks Pity Martinez or Maxi Morales. One's not in the league and one tore his ACL. So that's how great our picks were going for that. But anyway, we want to thank everyone for watching and listening this week, whether it be on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or on your podcast network of choice. Again, we're on Twitter at SOP Soccer, on Facebook and YouTube at Sons of a Pitch Soccer. You can email us, podcast at sonsofapitchsoccer.com, and we are on just about every podcasting platform out there. If we're not on the one you use, message us, and we'll try and get on there as well. So thank you to our sponsors, Donovan Food Brokerage, Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water, and Skira Icelandic Spring Water. Thank you to our viewers and our listeners. And Mike, thank you for joining me week in and week out for helping get this going. You do all of the great graphics and production work. I couldn't do it without you, and it's fun having this partnership with you. Thank you, everyone. We will see you for our live on October 4th, and we'll see you again a week.
October 3rd.
October 3rd. Excuse me. Sunday.
Saturday night, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. Inter Miami and New York City FC. And with that, let's wrap it up. Let's get out of here. We hit the hour mark. ASMR, Bella, COVID sucks. Boo. Thank you, Bella, for that wonderful comment. And
Not wrong. Not wrong.
not wrong. So, all right. With that, guys, have a great evening, and we will talk to you guys next Saturday night. And I'll probably be back on tomorrow for my picks and predictions. Come join us. Talk to you later.